coming up on episode 187, The Isle of Armor, Mythical Odysseys of Theros, RuneTerra on D&D Beyond, and much, much more on the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast, bringing you the latest and greatest geeky news of the week. We are back here on another Thursday night. This will be the second to last one with your host, Sean Hayes, and my singular co-host this week, Josh York.
For those who are watching right before this, I said I have a type. If you know anybody.
Jeez. Oh boy. So because we're recording on Thursday, it's Courtney's work schedule and she's not able to join us. When we return on Wednesdays, she will be back. Again, my wife and I are doing like a birth class type thing for 4 weeks.
How to find and carry your baby. I know.
So actually, a lot of it's been really helpful.
I'm sure.
Yeah, this past week was actually seeing like
there's probably a zillion things you never thought of.
Yep. Especially like just what are the hospital procedures right now?
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So that'll be definitely interesting. And hopefully things also loosen up a little bit as far as procedures go over the next month or so. But yeah. So we've just got, next week will be the last week that we have our weird schedule, and then we'll be going back to our normal stream schedule until the baby comes, and then who knows? Nobody knows. There will be at least a week off from doing that, but yeah. So we've got a lot of news this week, so we're going to try and get through it pretty quickly. But yeah. So, first thing that I wanted to throw up there is, so I don't know if we've talked about it before. I have made a post on Patreon about it before, just about a movement to kind of divorce ability scores in D&D from race, because there are some uncomfortable implications felt by particularly like the Black community and sort of Latin communities from in particular what are traditionally negative ability scores tied to certain races, and the idea being to get away from these ideas that like certain races which historically have ties to certain real world races are prioritized in physical aspects as opposed to intellectual aspects, and instead tying it to your class. So this also has the benefit of you are guaranteed to have ability score increases that directly benefit your class, and there is still an element of certain races may gravitate towards certain classes and archetypes based on other features. So like wood elves are still have elements of like being able to hide in natural terrain, and like feats that are available to certain races, which makes them gravitate toward rangers, rogues, things like that. High elves get the bonus cantrip. Half orcs still get a lot of the features that are related to like weapon use. Minotaur have a lot of features that are related to like melee combat.
I think that makes sense. I mean, when I pick a race in D&D, I don't think I've ever picked a race for its stats.
Yeah.
Like it's usually from like I don't even know. Like I have a general idea of what they might be, but I usually pick a race in D&D just more flavor wise.
Yeah.
And what makes sense with the class I want to play. I don't know.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Why not?
It does. So so I wanted to highlight there is a module up on itch.io. For those that aren't familiar, it's kind of like a platform for people to make mods for games, or smaller gaming projects or whatever. So I find like a lot of plugins for RPG Maker on there. But Gabe James Games, by Gabriel Hicks, who is a game designer, has a module for 5th edition where basically does this class-based ability score increases and provides narrative options for all of the sort of base classes for 5e, complete with artwork by Rachel Denton. It's up there right now for, pay for what you want. It's pretty good. The artwork is really great. I like a lot of the narrative elements in there. So like for barbarians, it asks you, like, are you, is your rage like big and overpowering, or is it like a whirling frenzy? And that might lead you to pick strength or dexterity. And then it might say, do you prefer to, use your heightened reflexes to avoid danger, or do you use your imposing physique to resist it? And that might lead you to pick dexterity or constitution. And what it does is it gives each narrative option.
Or you could say, do you use your imposing size to intimidate others? Like, on that, yeah, because then that could be your charisma or whatever.
Yeah. So what it does is it gives you, each choice is a choice of a +1 between 2 different stats. And each class has a choice of 3 stats. So Barbarian would be like Strength, Dexterity, and Constitution. Paladin, I believe, is Strength, Constitution, Charisma. And I'm actually just going to open the PDF before I try and go off on any other things. Rangers, I know for a fact. Strength, Dex, and Wisdom, since I am the Master Ranger. Let's see. So Bards, Charisma, Dexterity, Intelligence. Clerics, Charisma, Strength, and Wisdom. Monks are Constitution, Dexterity, and Wisdom. So yeah. Again, there's like 6 different places where it emphasizes that this is not a correction. This is purely a preference. Just because of some feedback on Twitter. Or rather, complaining on Twitter. But yeah, and then it also has like a little sidebar, which is like, for barbarians, consider the visual of your rage. For bards, consider the way you perform. So it's just to introduce like some narrative elements for you to think about for your character. And here's the thing is, because it's totally narrative and it's just suggestions, you don't have to use that. Right? So like, if it gives you the option of like, for monks, if it's if you're more of a technique-based fighter, or a power-based combatant, I mean, you don't have to make that distinction. You can pick, 2 other reasons for why you pick, dexterity over constitution. But yeah, it's just because I was trying to do it for Jemmora and incorporating like backgrounds and stuff, it was like, Gabe's already done the work. Just go find his stuff. And and if this proves pretty successful, he does mention in the document that they might tackle backgrounds as well in like a further update. So yeah, so I just wanted to shine some light on that before we get into some of the other stuff. So really quick, Pokemon Sword and Shields expansion releases next week on the 17th. It includes some new forms for the legendary birds, including new typing, so completely new typing for them. new Gigantamax forms for the Sword and Shield starters, as well as forms for Venusaur and Blastoise. And lots of new returning Pokemon. So adding more Pokemon to Sword and Shield. You do not have to purchase the expansion to get the returning, to have access to the returning Pokemon. In that if you already have them as part of your collection in Pokemon Home, you will be able to transfer them into Sword and Shield. There's also a dojo. That's going to be the main story feature of the expansion, where you get like a fighting teddy bear type Pokemon that, depending on your version of the game, will learn a different style of fighting and then evolve based on that style. So here's how to introduce some Dragon Ball Z into your Pokemon.
Everything can use a little Dragon Ball Z.
Everything can. So things to know, I don't really like either Venusaur or Blastoise's Gigantamax forms. Venusaur, just like the big Rafflesia leaf just like overgrows so that the petals just like almost cover the entire body. And Blastoise is the shell turns into like a tiered fortress with just guns sticking out everywhere. I think they could have done something a little more similar to the Mega form, which like Blastoise basically turned the two cannons into one giant cannon, and done a little more like some kind of like turtle mech type thing instead of just, oh, it's a walking fortress. Yeah, whatever. So, but yeah, so that releases next week. If and when I have time, I will try and jump into that and have a review for people. No promises though, since I'm still streaming through Xenoblade. So yeah. Oh, also, I didn't put this in the show notes, but Path of Exile, the next league/expansion. It's weird because, like, unlike Diablo, which they do a league or whatever, and it's just, oh, a new league starting, do this thing or whatever. Path of Exile seems to use their leagues for different, like, expansion content, and they introduce, like, completely new mechanics as part of it. Their new one is, like, in 10 days, I think, starts up, called Harvest. And it introduces a lot of, like, weird, like, growing...
Oh, I saw something about that, yeah.
Yeah, where it's like
you grow monsters.
Yeah, you grow monsters to then, slaughter and
kill them.
Yeah,
for loot.
Yep.
Why go to the dungeon when you can bring the dungeon to you?
Exactly. Also, yeah, games with weird stories. That game has a really weird story. That seems to, and they update the story every time there's a new league. It seems. So that's just weird. Definitely something for you and I to talk about, like, off stream, because I think it's right up your alley, actually.
If it didn't, I would play a game if it didn't have the skill tree it has.
Yep.
If it wasn't so ridiculous, it's too much for me to think about.
If it's a skill tree that mimics Xenoblade's affinity chart.
Disgusting. Yeah. Hate it.
Yep. So, let's see. Sega Game Gear Micro.
Yeah, it's
this
ridiculous.
This seems like it's coming quite late.
Okay, so imagine a Game Gear. Imagine a Game Gear that's about this big.
I can. I currently have a Game Boy Micro somewhere. But that was a concept like.
Was this a Game Gear for ants? How are you gonna play it?
Yeah. The Game Boy Micro was more of the novelty of having it than being able to actually play things on it.
Yeah, so it's only announced for Japan right now.
Yeah.
October 6th, I think. There's 4 different ones. There's 4 different color ones.
Yep.
And each colored one has 4 different games on it. They're not all the same games. Each one has 4 different games on it. So
here's the funny
thing. When I heard about this last week or the week before, I thought to myself, this is why Sega is out of the game, the console game. This
Absolutely.
stupid crap like this.
Yeah. Because especially here's the thing is they could probably fit like the Game Gear's entire library on one of them.
But here's the thing: you can say that about Nintendo Mini and SNES Mini and Genesis Mini. Same thing. You fit the entire library of. In fact, you probably fit the entire library of all of those systems on one of those systems.
I did. I think it was a post on Reddit or something talking about how you could fit the entire NES, Super NES, and N64 library on a single Switch cartridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the issue with part of the issue with the other classics was game licensing.
Yes, yeah, I know that. Yeah.
The other part, of course, is porting over games that are worth porting over.
Right.
However, Donkey Kong Country 2, what's up with that? That's all I'm going to say about that.
But yeah, it's just a novelty thing I saw. And
yeah.
Thought it was funny and also stupid at the same time.
Yeah. What would have been interesting was if they structured it in such a way that it would utilize the old Game Gear cartridges. Which probably tough. I'm just because when the Game Boy Micro came out, and granted this was I want to say roughly 2003, maybe.
That's still close enough to the original Game Boy.
Well, because it was essentially a slimmed down Game Boy Advance, because that's all that it played was Game Boy Advance games.
That's
so
it was still
to
the relevance of those cartridges. I mean, we're another plus 20 years from that point, even probably.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
17, 20 years, whatever. So it's like, how many of those cartridges are still floating around?
Yeah.
And like, that's such a small niche.
Yeah.
That's fair. Would it be more of that?
That's fair.
Be cool. I'm not saying it wouldn't be cool, but just
or what they could have done was bundled it with, again, a cartridge just for that thing that has all of that has however many games on it. Just so that way you're not entirely relying on internal storage.
Yeah, again, I think cool for someone like me who really likes physical stuff, but like, why?
So that way you can again have the entire library. But that
you can do that.
But that would be smart. So yeah.
I mean, that's why Raspberry Pi exists.
Exactly.
It's exactly what that is for.
Yeah.
You want every retro game ever? There you go.
Yeah. I expect these will likely be purchased and then sit on a shelf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why else make 4 different colored ones? And
yeah,
it's a novelty.
Yep.
And them being also this big.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. Even with my
the hardest game of all time. How you play Lion King, the hardest game of all time, on a Game Gear that small?
Nope. Yeah, even with my tiny short person hands, Game Boy Micro, which again, assuming similar size, it was not ideal at all. And Game Boy Micro only had the A and B buttons, because if I recall, Game Gear's got more buttons.
Probably it might be a 4 or 6 button
A, B,
face.
and C. Along with like start select,
or it might be a 3-button face. I don't know.
I think it's a 3-button face.
Probably that's what I'm trying to remember my Genesis because it was the same. I think.
Yeah.
Some Genesis had 6-button faces. That might have been like the knockoff controller that I had, though. I don't remember.
Maybe. So Josh, what is this Kingdom of Amular Reckoning?
Kingdom of Amular. Do you know what this game is?
I do not.
Oh, this is a game that came out 2009, 2010. No, came out in 2011 because it came out near Skyrim, and that was part of its issue. Developed by Kurt Schilling, and
oh boy,
yes,
oh boy.
Don't you don't remember like development of this game? Like I remember it being a big deal because
So
Kurt Schilling.
I remember a lot of the development nightmare surrounding Kurt Schilling.
Exactly.
But I just didn't remember the title of the game.
Yeah, Kingdoms Amalur Reckoning was a game developed by former Red Sox and Philadelphia Phillies pitcher Kurt Schilling, and like he hired what's his name, who wrote a bunch of D&D books. He writes all the Drizzt books.
Oh,
R.A. Salvatore.
Greenwood? Oh,
R.A. Salvatore.
Okay.
R. Salvatore like wrote all the history and back lore for this, and like set up all like did a lot of world building for them. McFarlane, the Spawn guy, did a lot of the character like enemy design and stuff like that, and art. So like it was a pretty big, high profile game.
I imagine that's probably what led to a lot of the budget problems.
Very expensive. Very expensive. Yeah. So in the end, long story short, this game company that Kurt Schilling owned went under because it was massive debt and it just couldn't do it. Partially because the game didn't sell as well as they had expected. Mm-hmm. Partially because it was kind of competing with Skyrim. Yeah. And that was like the most massive game that came out in like late 2011. Yep. But I played this last year during the fall or winter because I got it on a Steam sale and I put some like HD up-res mods and like some shading mods in it to make it look a little nicer. It plays like a single-player MMO, very much. It's almost like a one-player World of Warcraft. It feels. Okay. The combat's more action. It's not like pick abilities. But it's actually a pretty decent game. It's pretty fun. So yeah, it's getting a remaster apparently.
Okay.
It's a game I would recommend if you want like a very high fantasy setting, or if you want kind of that MMO feel with a little more fast-paced combat, and you want all the customization and all that comes with it. It's a pretty decent little game. It's pretty fun. So it'll be neat to see it remaster. I mean, I played it with mods, so I kind of got a little bit of a remaster myself.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a fan-made remaster.
Right.
Yeah.
I look at that a lot now at like old games that are like older than 5 years at this point. I look to see like what kind of mods are out for them, because there's a lot of games I missed that I'd like to play, but I am kind of a stickler for visuals right now. So like sometimes I just can't get past how crappy like PS3 era games look sometimes. I just want that little bit of polish on like lighting and like background textures and stuff to help me out with my immersion. It really does affect it. But yeah, that was a game I picked up and it's pretty fun. So I thought it was an interesting little. I was also surprised that game is getting a remaster for kind of how notorious. Yeah.
Yep.
It is. But interesting. EA, that's an EA game, I think. EA published it, pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Well, hey, you know what? They didn't screw up Jedi Fallen Order.
That's true. I mean,
overall, there were some bugs and stuff.
A broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah. But hey. Sometimes you gotta give a little, you know.
Well, I wonder if it was. I wonder if Disney kind of pushing back on the Star Wars license after the whole, what was it, Battlefront 2 fiasco, made
that game
them go
is
like,
apparently good now. Apparently, it's apparently really good now.
Yeah. I wonder if
that game at launch,
if Disney threatening with pulling the license and looking elsewhere, kind of a thing, made them.
But I just say that because maybe they realize single player games have a shot, and they probably think like we could, spend for EA a small amount of money to polish this game up and make a little money.
Yep.
Who knows?
So let's see. In other short news, Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Yes. I've kind of been looking. I am part of that cult following that really loves, particularly Ted. Film Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's a fantastic. I'm going to call it a period piece.
100%.
That encapsulates the late 80s, early 90s to a T. And it's just a really fun, kind of silly movie. I haven't watched it in a while, so I'd actually be curious to watch it and see if
it holds up.
Well, there's movies just with like, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, just how things are a little more PC now, right? That a lot of older movies, particularly from the 70s and 80s, and even the 90s, when you watch them now, there's parts where you're just like, ooh, that's not great. I'm curious because I haven't watched that movie since probably in a decade. If that's got similar things, I can't think of anything, but maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't speak to it because I still haven't seen it.
Oh my god!
We've talked about this. We were supposed to do 8-Bit Adventures movie night, and then life happened.
Yeah. Here's the premise. Two high school kids are failing out of school, and one's dad is like, if you fail, I'm sending you to military school.
Yeah. And I think it's specifically history that they're
and we got to get an A on this history presentation to pass for the year. And somehow they end up traveling through time, and they collect all these historical figures and bring them back to the present.
And as I understand, it was probably in a phone booth, right?
Yes, their time machine is a phone booth.
So it makes me also wonder if like there's some sort of Doctor Who influence on that, since that's basically what the TARDIS is. It's a time traveling phone booth.
Yeah,
I mean, police box, but that's what it is. It's a phone booth.
So that's the premise of the first one. And Elliot's just like, oh yeah, and you have to pass this, because if you two get separated, you'll never form your band, and your band makes music that unites the entire world in the future. That's why they have to do it. That's why they have to pass this history thing. So that's the premise of the first movie. There's a second movie that's not as good. It's all right. It's not as good. Now this one is like, now they're like middle-aged losers, and they still never like made the music that was supposed to unite the world, and like they get brought
before what looks like the Council of Qs or something.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
That's just like tasking them with your band never got off, never got out of its just playing for random strangers in bars,
playing local gigs. Yeah,
where is your music that unites the world?
You never left the local scene.
I mean, you never left the local scene. You're supposed to be playing concerts in front of millions of people and everything. And again, this is in the trailer, so I guess the pretense of the movie is we got to go to the future to learn how to play the music from our future selves, to then bring it back to the past so that we can play it in the past, so that we know how to play it in the future.
Right. Silly. We'll see how it is. I'll be honest, the trailer didn't impress me that much.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fine. I'll keep an eye on it. It's something I'm super, super pumped for. I'll still always love the original movie, just because, I don't know, I discovered it when I was like a teenager, and that was a perfect, stupid teenager movie to really like.
And it's got great positive messaging to it.
Yeah.
Just be excellent to each other. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the end. That's like that's the end of the movie. Be excellent to each other.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
and to this day, whenever I see Socrates, I say Socrates.
Yep.
Because of that movie.
Yep.
That movie has ruined me on that name forever.
I saw, so at one point in the trailer, they mentioned like, how can we be stealing it if it's from ourselves? We can't be stealing it if it's from ourselves or whatever. And someone pointed out in the comments on the YouTube video that was just like, oh, I see that their time spending with Socrates has actually paid off.
Yeah. There we go. The original's got a great sequence when all the historical figures are running around the mall.
Yep.
And it's just like Genghis Khan finds a baseball bat, and he's like going around knocking heads off mannequins, and Beethoven finds a keyboard, start playing. Napoleon's doing something, I don't know. Socrates.
Yep.
It's like picking up ladies. It's like giving like a philosophy speech at a fountain. I don't even remember. It's a silly, dumb movie, but it's silly, dumb in the most fun way.
Yeah.
And like the way Devil May Cry is awesome in video games.
Yes.
It doesn't take itself super serious.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll keep an eye on that.
So next up, I'm going to try and touch on this really quick, although it's probably one of the more unusual pieces of news that we have this week. So Dark Tides of Bilgewater is an adventure.
I think this is actually a really important piece of news, honestly.
Yeah, but it's also like it's a little weird. So available on D&D Beyond. It is an adventure for Legends of RuneTerra, which is not a D&D property. It's so RuneTerra is
League of Legends.
Is basically League of Legends answer to Hearthstone, if I recall, right? Because it's a card game.
Yes, it's just League of Legends world.
Yep,
it's their setting.
Yeah, and so I guess Riot worked with some of the staff at D&D Beyond to write up an adventure, complete with some magic items that are inspired from the League of Legends universe, and some subclasses as well. So one for barbarians, one for fighters, and one for rogues. And it's pirate themed, so Josh's favorite. But it's some kind of swashbuckling adventure in Bilgewater, which is, I guess the best way to describe it is, for fans of World of Warcraft, it's like Booty Bay, where all sorts of skullduggery and anything can be bought for the right price, and just scoundrels and swashbucklers everywhere. So if you dig pirates, definitely check. Oh, it's also free.
Yeah,
it's just free for everybody.
Here's why I think this is important, because it's Riot making moves, and Riot's been making a lot of moves lately.
Yeah,
and I feel like some companies, Blizzard, could take a lesson in doing better to promote their stuff through other avenues. Especially, I'm just gonna say this is basically about Blizzard sucking and dying, essentially, in my eyes, and like totally losing ground in every genre.
Yeah.
Essentially, like the only ground they really hold strongly in is World of War and MMOs, and that's a dying genre in general. So that's like, it's just you see a company you really grew up with and like their stuff, just like in your eyes, not doing much to stay relevant. Yeah. Whereas Riot is doing everything to stay relevant, and like moving into all different genres, and like really. Yeah. Now I say that they did do that one when BFA came out. They did like that. Mercer ran that one game, but like, was that adventure published? I don't know. Was it like?
No, it was just a one shot that they ran. They also did that with Kobolds and Catacombs when that came out for Hearthstone.
So I guess like, kind of, but like
that'd be great. But it's like
this feels like this is a published thing. Like it's not like, just like
why.
Here's a video.
Why has Blizzard not worked? So now that Wizards of the Coast has done 2 sort of partnered books right now, like one with Critical Role, one with Penny Arcade. We had a World of Warcraft campaign setting for 3rd edition. Why has Blizzard not reached out, to Wizards to either do an officially licensed one or just work within the grounds of doing something for like DM's Guild or whatever and putting out another Warcraft campaign setting?
I don't know, but I was thinking like that's so rich in like world building and lore, and like you can make so many subclasses and easily magic items, and like there's so much there.
Absolutely.
Like I don't know why you wouldn't. And I feel like spending wise, it doesn't cost you that much. Like a couple writers. That's it.
Who are likely to be freelance anyway.
Right. You've already got art. You've already got an art department. It's like
here's the other thing. Just reuse the art from the 3 ebook. It's not like the art for World of Warcraft has changed.
Yeah.
Since then.
I'm just like it's so like what I'm saying is I see Riot making all these moves. They got RuneTerra, they got the card game in, and like,
yep,
you know, kind of, I don't know, I haven't paid attention on Twitch if it's like overshadowing Hearthstone on, because that's kind of my judge as to what's popular, so kind of what people are watching on Twitch. But like Valorant is way more popular than Overwatch.
Yeah.
I mean, League of Legends is always up there in like the top 5 games.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
like,
yeah, League of Legends is still one of the top ones.
Like the only thing they haven't done is MMO, and they're probably just smart enough to stay out of that because it's
probably
why do MMOs in 2020 really? Because it's such a small thing. So it's just like I'm just like I'm super glad that Riot's doing this, and I think it's interesting to like totally branch out into other things and see other settings. I'm all for that. It's just like I'm disappointed that a company specifically like Blizzard, isn't really trying to move into that realm and to be more relevant and as another way to advertise and branch out and diversify what they're doing.
And I think it's the first time we've seen D&D Beyond partner with somebody that wasn't specifically Wizards.
True.
Yeah,
because MTG is Wizards, so yeah.
Yeah, to publish
that's essentially in-house
content for. I take that back because it's a little bit of a weird thing because they have published stuff from Matt Mercer before.
True.
Because they have like the Blood Hunter and some stuff like that, but it's and they have published some stuff from DM's Guild, but that's it's another case of
that's still pretty much directly tabletop RPG related.
Yes, yeah, and that stuff like
League of Legends and all that it has nothing to do.
And like Blood Hunter was specifically like for Critical Roles stuff
as a one shot
kind of thing. Yeah. Where this is like this is an established IP reaching out and saying, I guess the way to think about it would be like if Wendy's had reached out to D&D Beyond and put their their little mini mod for 5th edition up on D&D Beyond. I guess in my mind it would be what would be similar is like a big established brand doing this.
Well, this makes sense for Riot too, because here's what I've noticed them doing, and I don't really play their games that much, but they are just on the periphery of what I pay attention to. They've been really trying to build their world. The world of RuneTerra and League of Legends over the last few years. It's not just like here's a random bunch of heroes and you play League, but like more of they're from a world and like here's why they're doing this and like here's the dynamics and stuff. So I think this is just another way for them to do that and like really push this world building as well as diversify what they're into, advertise in another way and reach a different demographic. And I mean they kind of got the same thing as Blizzard in that they've got a world and they've got the lore and they've got items and they've got characters and like they've got the world building there. So like do it. Why not?
And so one other point just about Dark Tides of Bilgewater before we move on is the subclasses are actually really good.
Oh yeah.
So the barbarian one is like it's basically like deep sea explorer. And it's like when you rage, you gain like it's just you gain an extra appendage, and like they say it could be that you grow like a kraken tentacle, or it's just you get like an anchor chain, like you just like grow an anchor chain that you then can like throw at people, kind of a thing. The fighter is basically another gunslinger, and you can choose between pistolier, which is fast and flashy, or sniper. And then the rogue is the wild card. And this is an example of where it's actually using tools in 5th edition to get stuff done. Where specifically it uses dice sets, dragon chess, or playing cards. And it's all about manipulating chance and fate. And
these are all, I can tell you, these are all based off League characters.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. But the idea is to they adapted them because I guess they fit best within this this adventure. But they're all really designed well and super flavorful. I mean, Wildcard is fantastic. Like if you want to play like a gambler type character, right up your alley.
Yeah, because the character I'm assuming they're basing him off of in League, like his whole mechanic is he has these random cards that like depending on which one you get makes him like more powerful in different ways.
Yep.
So it's all kind of, he's like an RNG character. So
yeah. What they do for that is I think you roll a d4 and then it's the result on the die determines like the card suit.
Perfect. Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
that's if you pick playing cards. You get different stuff if you pick like dice or dragon chess. So yeah. All right. So got some big stuff. So we might have to skip this week in 8-Bit Adventures and Questlog this week to get through some of these other news items. But I guess why don't we continue with the D&D news and then we'll finish up with the PS5 stuff.
Sure.
So Mythical Odysseys of Theros is out. This is the latest campaign setting for Dungeons & Dragons. It is inspired by the Magic the Gathering setting. It is based on basically classical Greek and Roman mythology with a sort of Magic the Gathering twist on it. So in this campaign setting, basically the gods take a very active role to the point that every character either has a direct connection to a god or goddess, or you outright reject them, which is a choice in and of itself that has consequences. So the idea is the deities all live in this place called Nyx, which is kind of like the astral sea, astral plane. There are monsters that are Nyx-born, which are touched by this realm. And that's why you have like the weird looking Hydra on the cover where I guess it's for creatures that have this touch to them. It's any place that that light is not directly touching. So any place that would cast shadows instead shows Nyx, which is like just this galaxy starry realm. And the idea is Nyx-born creatures are either direct messengers of the gods or emissaries of the gods. They might be the platonic ideal of that creature, which I think is a neat concept. So it's like a Nyx-born Hydra is the most Hydra a Hydra could be. So one of the other things they include is all of the player characters, because they're touched by deities, either start play with a bonus feat or a special just supernatural trait that they get. So this is on top of like your race and your class. So some things are like anvil forged, like you might be a chosen of I think it's Hephaestus, who is supposed to be analogous to Hephaestus from Greek mythology, or Vulcan, where it's basically you're kind of like Warforged, where like you don't eat, you don't sleep, your skin has a you're like who was it? Colossus. It's like you have like metallic skin, and like you don't sleep, you don't eat, you're kind of resistant to poison, you're immune to disease. There's another one where you're just super heroic. So it's you have advantage on death saves, and once per long rest, if you would be reduced to 0 hit points, you can just say no and be reduced to 1. There's one where the idea is you are a hero that protects other heroes. So it's like you pick like your chosen band or whatever, and you get super benefits like protecting them. There's one where it's an oracle, and things like that. There is one for rejecting the deities, which you do not gain piety with any deity, and instead, as you gain levels, you just get like abilities to like you can cast protection from good and evil on yourself. You can cast dispel magic. You can cast like banishment or magic circle against good and evil. The idea being that you can't really be atheist in a campaign setting where the gods are very active and like their effects are made present in the world and they're like viewable and visible. You can, however, say, well, they might be gods, but they're not really divine, or I just don't like them, so I'm not going to follow. Like I'm going to reject them. And so so there is an archetype for that. They do have it's College of the Orator for bards, as well as the Oath of, I think it's the Oath of Heroism for paladins, which is focused on just like big, being big over the top hero type stuff. So like, you know, Oath of Hercules, basically. It gives you like a whole bunch of stuff to athletics. So very athleticism and glory fits in there. Some interesting, so they have some new artifacts that are all tied to the deities. So that also gain in power as you build a relationship with that deity. So that's like an interesting thing. And then they detail benefits you get from your chosen deity that you're acting on behalf of as you perform, basically you perform missions for them and build your stuff. So very similar to what we saw in Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, where you are gaining ranks with a guild and gaining benefits from pursuing ranks in that. You are essentially gaining ranks with a deity and getting supernatural benefits from that. So yeah. They also introduce mythical monsters. So these are basically one step higher. So these are all legendary monsters. So like legendary boss monsters and everything. And then the mythical aspect to it is typically when it would be reduced to 0 hit points, it instead regains usually their maximum number of hit points, and then they enter. I was going to say
all of its hit points is a joke.
All of its hit points, and then they enter mythical mode, in which they get extra legendary actions that they can do, and different conditions for stuff that triggers. So they do give 3 examples of mythical monsters. One is this giant, basically like Lolth-like spider demon thing. Where like when she's reduced to 0 hit points, her spiderlings like completely cover her body, and then she regains 100 hit points and then gains 100 temporary hit points. And then it's as long as she has temporary hit points, she gets like all these different actions that she can do. There's another one that's a kraken. It's like a unique kraken, so that it's like when reduced to 0 hit points, the armor, like its like carapace splits, revealing its 4 hearts. And so now it becomes, you then have to like kill all 4 hearts in order to fully vanquish the creature. And if you leave one, like it like regains all of its carapace and everything over a long rest.
That's fun. I like that a lot, actually, because I don't know, a lot of fights tend to just be whack it until it dies.
Yeah,
without
so
much else going on.
Introducing phases to fights, I think, is a neat addition to D&D.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So all in all, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I was not. I was just like, I'll pick it up for the subclasses and I'll see what they're doing with these magic items or whatever. But especially the way they build the deities, kind of makes me also think about, you know, stuff for Jemmora. I like the whole so you are a mythic hero. So here, have something at first level. And you know, if you decide you don't like any of the supernatural stuff, it says, yeah, you could just give them a feat.
Yeah.
And then like it's flavored as, you know, to think of like a supernatural origin for that feat. So like actor might be like, oh, I was bitten by a snake, and whenever I speak and deceive people, a snake crawls out of my mouth or something. And it's like, oh, that's weird, but very classical mythology. So yeah. So
I really like that phase thing, because that's the one thing I am always thinking of, is trying to make encounters more interesting and feel more epic or just more memorable, because a lot of fights just tend to be very samey.
Yeah.
In my experience.
And one thing that's cool is it says so the stat block is just, if you don't want to run this as a mythic encounter, you just don't activate the mythic phase, and that's it. Otherwise, it just functions as a standard legendary creature. Granted, they're all still like challenge rating 20 and then become like challenge rating 26, 28 when you add the mythic stuff. I'm a little sad that there's only 3 mythic monsters in the book. But it provides that framework for you to build off
and it helps me to think of just that's the stuff I like those books for. Stuff like that helps me. It works as a springboard for me to kind of jump off and then move in a lot of different directions, and makes me think about other things and how I would apply those, not those exact mechanics, but apply those theories and like ideas to other encounters and other things that I'm doing.
Yeah. I do have to say, I also think they do have races specific to Theros in the book, which are based on what are present in the Magic the Gathering block or set for that. So you have Leonin, you have Centaur, you have humans, you have Satyr, you have Minotaur, and you have Tritons. So Tritons are just reprinted from Volos. Centaur are just reprinted from Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, as are Minotaur, I believe. So they are unchanged. Humans are still humans. So that leaves Leonin, which are kind of just like Tabaxi, but instead of getting that burst of speed, they just have like a roar that frightens people. And then Satyr don't actually get very much in the way of like unique traits. I was actually kind of disappointed. So I think all in all, I wasn't like, after reading that portion, I was like, okay, well that's not as exciting as I hoped for. But yeah, no, I think all in all, it was actually a surprisingly good, I think. Yeah. And I might even be a little more forgiving to Wizards for releasing more Magic the Gathering campaign settings. Maybe just make them unique settings. Because if they release Innistrad as a replacement for Ravenloft, I think there's going to be problems. So, but
it's vampires. It's all the same to me, but whatever.
Yeah, it's a thing. They have very similar themes. But I think vampires. Yeah. Well, it's gothic horror. Yeah, what it is. But Ravenloft has some other weird stuff to work with. So that's just part of that.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if they kept doing this, because again, that's essentially in-house.
Yeah.
It's self-promote your own products through the other products.
Yeah. It was just, for the longest time, they said that Wizards said it wasn't going to do that. For whatever reason. I don't know. But so now what this is people are hoping for a D&D set in Magic. But with how stuff works in Magic, I don't know story-wise how you would pull that off. You'd have to do it as like a standalone block, I think.
Yeah, of course you would. Because a lot of them, well, you could do that with any block, because like every block takes place on a different world or whatever, and that's what the planeswalkers are. They jump between worlds.
Yeah, but I guess what I mean is like the fact that, so like in Magic, planeswalking is actually like a very limited trait to, like, because planeswalkers are like near godlike,
right?
And they're the only ones in theory that can planeswalk. Whereas like in D&D,
I'm pretty sure you as the player are a planeswalker.
You are
when you're playing Magic. Yeah.
Whereas like in D&D, there's like every wizard can planeswalk. Every Illithid can planeswalk. There's like a whole bunch of monsters that can planeswalk or whatever, and they don't have to have this planeswalker spark that activates.
It'd be pretty interesting.
But I think if they were to just say, like, do it as a special set and be like, hey, they would likely do it with Forgotten Realms, which,
of course, 100%.
That's fine.
You get your Drizzed legendary.
Yeah.
And there'd be a legendary. No, he would like make a legendary cat panther token. Like I can already exactly. He would get double strike because he dual. Like I can already like imagine what his card would be.
It would be an artifact creature token.
Correct. Yeah.
Although I think now it can be like creature, like artifact cat or something like that.
I don't know.
Magic typing's weird.
Whatever. You could put whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
Qualifiers and labels you want on it.
Yeah. But I think, I would be open to seeing that. I mean, I think you could easily do Eberron as well. Or
I don't know enough about Eberron or the characters or
do a
story
whole block where essentially you do one set that's Forgotten Realms, you do one set that's Eberron, and then you do one set that's Ravenloft, and there you go.
Yeah, but usually there's an overarching story between. So usually they come out in blocks of 3.
Sort of. They haven't been doing that recently.
Usually it's a block, and a block is set into 3 sets. This is how I remember it. And usually those 3 sets have some type of overarching story.
Correct. The last block has all been standalone sets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that don't have interconnected stories. Like, they have elements that tie into other stuff. So, like, I forget the name of it, but it's the fairy tale one had, there was the green planeswalker featured into that storyline. But, like, Theros, as far as I know, Theros does not have any connection to any of the other sets at all.
Interesting. Well, I'm just thinking, like, Ravnica actually had 2 blocks. The original Ravnica had 3 sets, and the story took place through Ravnica, and then whatever, a decade or so went by, and they did another one in Ravnica.
Well, because here's the thing. That story tied into the overall story that they were doing because Jace was everywhere.
Well, also, yes, at this point, there is an overarching story in Magic, period, and you can do that with the Planeswalkers because they can bounce to wherever Nicol Bolas is being a jerk now, whatever.
Yep. Well, he's dead now, so.
Whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah. All in all, surprisingly good.
Cool.
I would say. Worthwhile. All right. So last bit of news up. Big news. Finally got to look at what the PS5 is going to look like. Although we have no set release date and no price yet. Still unclear if you can actually put it on its side or if it's going to be a vertical console.
I think they're always meant to be vertical, but
okay.
I don't know.
There will come 2 versions, one that has a disk drive and one that is digital only. So I'd expect the digital only one will probably be cheaper.
Probably.
Because it doesn't have added hardware built into it.
I will be getting one of the disk drive.
They're really leaning into a sort of like white with sort of black and blue aesthetic.
A very future.
Yeah.
Aesthetic.
Oh, totally like super. Very reminiscent of Eva from WALL-E. So Eva was like the little like apple like robot.
I've never seen that movie. I don't know.
So for folks that have seen WALL-E know what I'm talking about. She's like the little floaty robot, but very sleek, curved, with very stark contrasts to it.
Who's that? Echo in Overwatch.
Also, yes. Yeah. Similar aesthetic.
White with like blue and black.
Yeah. But they focused a lot on the 4 buttons as symbology during the presentation. I feel like they wasted a lot of time just doing interstitial graphics with buttons just shifting everywhere.
Here's me, and I think I represent a pretty average demographic of, the mid-30s person who plays games. I don't care what the dang system looks like. I don't care that much what the controller looks like. I more just care that it feels good in the hands. I'm more interested in the games. Like, what do you got? What are we doing? And like the performance of the system overall, I guess, is important too. Like, is it a significant upgrade for PS4? And like, that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So like, game announcements, they had a lot.
They had a lot. So I will say this with the caveat of somebody that will not be buying this console. There was really only a couple of items where I was like, oh, that looks pretty good. Like, if I was in the space where I had unlimited money and could buy all of the consoles, yeah, I might pick this up to play some of these games. Granted, and this is with the other caveat, is that, this is like kind of demo footage. Right. So when the game comes out, I guess, and this has happened before for folks, that the actual gameplay and actual game turns out not living up to what it was selling itself for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That said, leading off with GTA 5 was kind of weird.
Well, here's the thing: everybody who gets a PS5 gets GTA Online for free.
Yep.
So I mean, and then that game came out in 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
The game's almost 10 years old, but it's still super popular. It's still a super popular game.
Yeah. Also, they did a weird thing of like, until PlayStation 5 launches, everybody that's currently playing GTA 5 online will be getting like, what was it, $1 million GTA bucks a day or something?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't play GTA.
It's something absurd like that. So
I don't know. Game's not my cup of tea.
But we got Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Looks awesome. That reminded me that I need to play the Spider-Man on PS4 because everyone said it was great, and everything I saw of it looked great. And then watching this was like, oh, I'd like to play the first one because I want to play this one for sure.
Yeah. Gran Turismo 7.
If you like racing,
yeah.
Not just racing. Do you like racing simulators?
Yeah.
Yeah. This isn't just like arcade racing. This is racing simulation. I mean, I played a lot of Gran Turismo 2 when I was in high school. I like cars, so it depends for me.
So yeah. Next up, so one of the games that I was like, oh yeah, I could get into this is Ratchet and Clank.
Yep.
Pulling a book out of Doctor Strange, it seems.
I've never played a Ratchet and Clank, honestly.
I have not played I've never even seen like the story of Ratchet.
They were really popular on PS2, like when it originally came out. That and like I remember that and Jack and Daxter. I always felt were like the same game. To me, I don't know why.
The stream that I was watching, that they had the when Ratchet and Clank came up or whatever, they showed that it was basically like all portals opening up to different dimensions or whatever. They were like, oh, wouldn't it be really funny as if like they just see Jack and Dexter like in one of those portals or whatever, just like waving like, all right.
They like run by.
Yep.
Although I watched the trailer for it, looks fun. Like not usually like action platformer, like 3D action platformer is usually not my deal. But this Jack and Daxter, I'm going to keep calling it that because I still think they're the same game. Ratchet and Clank always had like the cool, like you had the cool gadgets. That was the whole point. You get the different gadgets and weapons and stuff. And you know what? If you could like, I don't know if any games did this, like if you could customize them and like with RPG like elements and upgrades and stuff, like build your own with like pieces you get, I think that would be really cool. Like you could invent weapons and gadgets like from things you pick up. I don't know if that's in the game or if that's like I'm just making things up, but or just pushing ahead. That'd be cool.
A common consensus in the chat when I saw that clip was oh hey, you know what this would have been great for? A Sonic game based on the movie. Since that apparently is like the whole point is like using the rings as portals to other dimensions and stuff like
that's
that.
Right.
And then like a lot of the footage from that was like grinding on rails and stuff. And it's like, oh, like this could have been a really good Sonic game. Sega.
Sonic. Yeah.
Once again, Sega dropping the ball, it seems. But yeah, so then
I wonder if they remastered those old Ratchet and Clank games. I'll have to look back. I might play those if they did.
So we're just gonna, because I see we're running short on time here, we're gonna kind of skip through a bunch of these. So Project Athia, Stray. Stray threw everybody for a loop. They were like, oh yeah, robot game, and then it was like you play as the cat, and everybody was like, no. Returnal. Sackboy's Big Adventure. So seems like a Super Mario 3D World, but with Little Big Planet, is how that game can be summed up. Destruction All Stars.
That looks like why. I remember I thought this like, why hasn't Twisted Metal put out a game? Because that's what this is basically.
Twisted Metal was in the chat. Yeah,
they were just looks like it looks like Twisted Metal with Rocket League graphics.
Yes,
kind of. And the whole time I was watching the show, I was like, man, I wish that they made a new.
But also, you can exit your vehicle and like run up and like destroy stuff. Yeah, that was the part that seemed a little weird to me.
It'd probably be fun.
I can't remember if it's Kenna or Kina.
Is that the one with like the magic girl?
Yeah, and the little spirits and
everything. And she has a Pikmin, the little Pikmin.
Yeah. Shocking to no one, that was the game that I was most interested in to see more.
You know what? When I watched that, I was like, oh. At first, I saw like kind of looks like Zelda. Like this looks like they're like, reply to Breath of the Wild or like a Zelda game for Sony. Yeah. And then I saw like Pikmin and Magic. I was like, oh, Sean would really probably like this type of game.
I mean, the staff, she could use magic to turn the staff into a bow, which, I mean, that's just straight out of the D&D cartoon from the 80s.
Yeah, so I described that game. It looked like Zelda Pikmin.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just from what I gathered.
Next up, Goodbye Volcano High, which is... yeah.
It looked moody. It looked a little edgelordy. But hey, there's a lot of indie games that have done that lately and kind of been more narrative based and like that kind of like animated, like an animated drama style that have done really well. What is it? Night in the Woods was one that came out a couple years ago. That's like indie. Why we blurry here, camera?
Yeah.
You see that pro streamer move?
Yeah. But one thing that I was trying to see, and I saw in the cut in like the opening thing when they're all around the campfire. So Goodbye Volcano High seems to be, it's about Anthro Dinosaur High School, and people being, emotional, edgy teenagers. But the thing that got me was they were sitting around the campfire and like eating pizza and everything, and there was a cell phone, and I could have sworn that I saw the D&D Beyond logo on that cell phone. So I got to go back and look and like take a still of that.
Double check.
Because I asked in the chat, nobody answered me or whatever. And I'm like, it's bothering me that I'm like, oh, like were they playing D&D? Did somebody have is there like a D&D Beyond parody on the cell phone there? Because it looked really close, just like from what I could see. Yeah. Which I thought would have been fantastic if it was like a parody of it. Oddworld. Up next.
That'd be cool. You know what? That's a series I've always meant to go back and play through.
Yeah.
I always liked the way it looked. I just never really played it, but I think I want to go back and play those games because they always thought they looked cool.
Yeah.
I watched a video on the guy who developed those, like the main lead director of those games. Yeah. And he's like a really interesting guy, and his kind of take on game development and his process through those games was really interesting to watch.
Nice. Ghostwire Tokyo, which is basically
spooky.
Yes, but yeah, it seemed more like an action, like Ghostbusters. If you punched the ghosts instead of using proton packs to trap them. Yeah. Jet the Far Shore. I don't remember. I remember writing down this title. I don't remember anything about it.
I don't know. It didn't seem that interesting to me.
Godfall, which seemed like, I don't know if it's single player or not. It felt like Smite.
Want to know what it looked like to me? It looked like Kingdoms of Amalur, but like modern. The gameplay looked a lot like it.
Solar Ash, which was a popular one in the chat that I was watching for the art style. Hitman 3, which looks like a near future, somewhat sci-fi Hitman. Astro's Playroom, which everybody thought was like Sony basically trying to make their controller into a mascot and then build a game around it.
Jesus.
Little Devil Inside, which like kept cutting back and forth between like almost like a Samurai Jack style game with like really interesting like monsters, and you're playing as a hero and stuff, to like a butler, and not really clear what the relationship between the two was. So NBA 2K21, in which we saw no gameplay, but supposedly coming out fall 2020. So
I mean, it's basketball.
Yeah, it's basketball.
They pump it out every year or whatever.
Yeah. Bug Snacks, which looks really weird. Like you play as little weird monsters or whatever, and there's like all of the critters on this island are food. But when you eat the food critters, you turn into food. So it's weird. It's weird. Demon Souls.
That's a remake.
Yeah.
Demon Souls came out before Dark Souls. It was the original Souls. And it's a full-on remake. I'm kind of interested because I'm thinking I might start trying out those Souls games. I don't know.
Oh boy.
Jedi Fallen Order.
It's gonna be Final Fantasy
Jedi Fallen
VII
Order
remake.
got me feeling a little cocky, so we'll see.
FF7 remake pull-up bar all day long.
No, come on. I beat Hollow Knight, Fallen Order. Those aren't easy games. I could maybe do Dark Souls. We'll see.
Oh boy. Pragmata, which again, really weird looking game from Capcom, where everybody gets sucked up onto the moon. It's weird. I don't know. Sure. I had trouble following what was going on in that trailer. Resident Evil 8 Village, which they punked everybody because everybody was like, "Oh my god, it's the next Resident Evil game. This looks great. Werewolves? What's going on here? Vampires and werewolves?" And then it just comes up like Village. And everybody's like, "Nani?" And then they took the V and then the I and then the vertical parts of the L's or whatever, and then just like lit those up, and everybody's like, "Oh, we got punked." So yeah, so that was fun. And then
looks a lot like Resident Evil 4 visually. To me, it did.
Yes. And then Chris comes back.
I mean, you got to have your boulder punchy boy.
Yep. So yeah, I'll be interesting to see gameplay of that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like Resident Evil games though.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see if it's more on like the horror aspect, like 7 was kind of a return to, or if because it's got vampires and werewolves and stuff, it's going to push more into the action that like 4 through 6 were.
I think they got to find the balance. 4 was a good balance. 5 started pushing it a little. Your punching, it got a little ridiculous and a little too campy.
5 and 6 pushed a little too far into action.
6 was pretty panned. Although I think it gets more, as with a lot of games, I think it gets more crap than it deserves. But just because people's expectations are usually set too high. Yep. But 7 was definitely like a much slower, methodical, creepy game than. I mean, it still had its set pieces and ridiculous camp at times, but it wasn't like 6, which is just bananas.
Yep. And
Resident Evil 6 is like the Resident Evil movies.
Yes. Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
If you want a comparison for how weird and crazy.
That is not a ringing endorsement of the franchise.
No, that's not a good
thing. For those that don't know. And then finally, Horizon 2 Forbidden West.
Good. I thought you were going to forget this. This was like the big one.
Well, it was the final one. I wrote these down in order of appearance.
Okay. It was just the first one on my list. That's all.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely the biggest one of the show. So direct sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn.
Played the first one. I need to play the first one.
Yeah.
It's pretty much universally like considered probably one of the best games on PS4. So.
Yep.
Have to see.
But yeah, so I guess it's Aloy continues her journey through robot-infested, post-apocalyptic wilds.
Robot dinosaurs.
Yeah, robot dinosaurs. But the showcase, so like other beasts, it seems. So a lot of underwater stuff.
God,
so, yep.
Games need to stop doing underwater stuff.
Never.
I hate it.
Never.
It's the worst. They're always the worst part of every game.
Although Monster Hunter did, so I don't know. But that means that they cut out like all the good monsters. But yeah. Again, I mean, because also I hear that Horizon Zero Dawn may be coming to PC.
Wouldn't be surprised.
So, yeah. So that's definitely the big one. I mean, again, all they'd have to do is continue the same gameplay, and they can make bank. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But they showcase like there's some other society that's like binding mechanical beasts to their will, and I think they're supposed to be the antagonists or whatever. They bring like these big giant. They look like Oliphants from Lord of the Rings, where they've got like 4 tusks coming out and stuff, but they're all mechanical.
Yeah, I don't know that much about the story of Horizon Zero Dawn, so
yeah,
I always kept myself a little bit in the dark because I thought that one day I would probably play it.
Yeah, I just know there's like people that can tame the robots somehow.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Sure. So that wraps up the news for this week. So we're gonna skip quest log, and I'll just do a quick wrap up of what's going on with 8-Bit Adventures. I'm not gonna do the bumper. Basically, so I have been saying that this week's Tales of Jemmora would be the last one for a while. That is not going to be the case. We were able to find alternate days. So basically, after this week, we're gonna do theoretically 2 more episodes of Tales of Jemmora. On basically Saturday instead of on Friday. So I'll shift around some game streams as well for that. But basically, this session and then the session after that should wrap up basically the current sort of mini arc that we've been doing online. And then just because the session after that puts it a little close to when baby might arrive, we might just plan on some kind of fun, silly thing. Maybe with the characters, maybe not with the characters. Don't know yet. But we do have stuff planned. So you can expect basically at least 2 more serious business episodes of Tales of Jemmora. And then as far as comics, I have not really worked on stuff for the book. I've done like maybe 1 more comic colored. I have not been keeping to my schedule of trying to get multiple comics colored a week. But I did put out a comic this week, and hoping to kind of wrap up the arc pretty soon for chapter 3, just so that I can get to a different space of being able to help myself out narratively, or rather doing shorter narratives than like an overarching plot, because I am not a writer. So writing, and especially writing a coherent, continuous story, is very difficult for me to do. So yeah, it started, 8-Bit Adventures started as just me doing like one-off comics kind of a thing. So I'd like to kind of get back to that, and maybe if there's other elements that I can include to, do like a background plot.
Just like 2 single ones, and then maybe every once in a while you have an idea for like a 2 or 3 like mini thing. Like
yeah. The problem was that I set up this chapter with an overarching plot, and kind of want to wrap it up before I start doing that. Although Scott Kurtz has had plenty of success, where he was like, you know what? I'm kind of in a rut right now, and I want to, like, with just everything that's been going on, because normally PvP, his longtime webcomic was like a reflection of like current stuff, and he's like, yeah, I kind of don't want to really like write about all the anxiety and stuff that's been going on recently, and I want to write about hope and happier stuff. So he basically he just said, all right, yeah, we're switching gears. All current storylines just cut right now. And we're gonna jump like 20 years to the future. And he was just like, yeah, we're just gonna change it up. I don't know how it's gonna go. It might backfire, but I'm gonna change something up. And it seems to have been worked out pretty well. But yeah, so I'm gonna try and wrap up this arc pretty soon, and then chapter 4 will just go back to being kind of individual, one-off stuff. And if there's something that I can work into a narrative, maybe. But yeah, not gonna worry about it. So unfortunately, no Speedy and Monty comics. I have been getting done what I am able to do during this time. Work has not been very pleasant lately, so that has kind of impeded on my ability to create stuff outside of work. So with that, we are going to finish up. So again, sorry for no quest log this week, but basically it's Josh and I have been playing what we've been streaming. So if you want to see what I'm streaming on 8-Bit Adventures Plays, you can check it out right here on Twitch at twitch.tv/8bitadventures. You want to check out all of the other content that I produce, you can go to 8-bitadventures.com. And if you want to support that content, be sure to check out patreon.com/8bitadventures. Big shout out and thank you to all of our current patrons. Thank you for your support. If you want to check out what Josh is playing, twitch.tv/damnanimal.
That's me.
Yes. Our opening theme for the podcast is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his work over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. And as always, have fun, everyone. Happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.